Mohamed, good to see you here.
Great to see you, Tian.
Is thinking about trade, what's going to be its future. Tariff is going to be a big concern for everyone. Now, your take as a global company.
My take as a global company, I know that we're talking about tariffs that are going to be critical for the world economy, but some countries will be affected, but some other countries will not be affected. For example, when you think about the agreement that within APEC, many of the countries are already collaborating today. They're not thinking about tariffs today. They're actually thinking about what should be their participation in the new ecosystems that are being created. You know, you and I talked earlier today about artificial intelligence, data centers, clean energy, etc. That's the topic of the day, because this ecosystem is attracting so much capital coming from the private sector, large companies, or even private equity, that many of the discussions around collaboration is how to make sure that this ecosystem becomes vibrant globally.
Are you suggesting there's a huge divide between politicians today and business community's vision?
I will say that everybody is listening to what's happening with the elected officials, but many of the companies that we are working with also are listening very carefully and watching what's happening in the political landscape, but many of them are not stopping the execution of their strategy because they need to. They have to respond to the stakeholders that they have, whether they are customers, the investors, and they need to continue to execute their strategies.
Talking about AI, let's focus on that. I know you have been doing a lot of technical work and working in many fields related to technology. One of the things is people are afraid of so-called technological blocks related to geopolitics. Are you?
No, I would say, and the reason why, because we know that you have, when you think about AI, many people will think about just the semiconductors. That is not all it is. AI is about the large language models, and you have fragmentation, not only in the US, in China, in Europe, in many other parts of the world. So you have so many countries contributing to the AI when it comes to the large language models. But when we think about AI, you think about AI with semiconductors. You think about data centers. You think about clean energy. You see the number of data centers that are being built today around the world, not just in the US, not just in China, not just in Europe. It is happening in Latin America, as we heard today. It's also now happening in ASEAN. It's also happening in Africa. So we truly believe that even though we had the discussion around tariffs, it's a very important discussion today affecting a few countries, we believe that the rest of the world will continue to execute, to have the benefit. We are in the middle of a technology revolution.
Yes, we are.
Tariffs are not going to get in the way.
I keep on dragging you back to geopolitics. Sorry for doing that, but I want to remind you about the fact that even about AI, about data center, there's a lot of talk, of course, about so-called security and how is it work with the technology sharing. Your take on that, especially Asia-Pacific region, we see China and U.S. and also different economy having very different understanding about so-called security.
So listen, security is about access to some of their intellectual property, but when you think about the participant in the world of AI and data, right? So there are different countries have different data environments, right? There is access to the IP when it comes to semiconductors, technology, and all this. But think about all of the other players that are in that ecosystem, from South Korea, from Japan, from Taiwan, from many other different places. So I know we keep focusing on two places today in the world, but I will tell you, many of the clients that I'm working with are paying very much attention about what's happening with tariffs, with the security implications. But most importantly, the focus is to understand how can we have a lift in the global economy by adopting this nascent technology that is artificial intelligence, but accelerating innovation in areas like green energy, etc. The momentum is good. And I know this is fascinating because that momentum is not what is catching the news today.
No, not really.
But it is happening. It is happening.
Green transformation is really taking place. We discussed that on the stage, but to follow up on that, we know there are already mature technologies, quote-unquote, even cheap products that can be of use for many economies for their green transition. But here comes to the trade story. Tariffs, we also see some different kinds of secondary, kind of sanctions. How will these, blur our vision for green transformation, especially at a time when AI really further develop of it needs so much energy.
So one of the things that we're witnessing today is that the green transformation is not happening necessarily in the countries that develop the technology per se when it comes to artificial intelligence or semiconductors.
Yeah.
It's happening in other countries like in Latin America because you have access to biodiversity. It is happening in other parts of the world. So there is a decoupling between the people that want to consume that energy for green transformation and the countries that are going to provide that energy. It is not being decoupled.
What does that say to us?
That says to us that the world is actually getting closer. And it's not one industry at a time. It's new ecosystems are getting closer. The ecosystem that I mentioned between AI, data centers, infrastructure and real estate, and green energy is coming together more so than we have ever seen before. It's not one of the sectors per se. It's all of them. Just look at how much money has been invested in that space, independent of the geopolitical issues.
Right. But we see some monopolies, certainly, in AI, particularly latest GAI development. And we saw a certain company kind of giving out some information saying, well, in a few months, something's going to happen from time to time. Of course, that's for investment and also other issues. But there is a danger that we are going to have a huge gap. Not just gap, generally speaking, in different parts of the world, but huge gap between the really front runners and the others. What could that mean?
That is a very interesting question. So first of all, when it comes to the current players, we have seen technology revolutions in the past already. You know, the beginning of even the mobile internet with telecommunications and mobility, which created a new digital age, right? We saw that. And many of the players that were there at the beginning are not here today. Many new entrants even got created. So a couple of things that we believe might happen. The first one is that AI, when it comes to the divide, I think AI can create something that exists that doesn't exist today. Today, we think about the digital divide. But to be candid, we also have a knowledge divide. Who knows what education they had to that or not. We talked about it this morning. If AI can help us democratize access to knowledge, then everybody gets a shot to having that knowledge and to create the next generation of businesses, the next generation of innovation.
But who is going to do the job of, AI literacy, for example? Who is going to try to narrow down that technological or AI gap, so to speak? We heard a lot of talk about this, but we haven't heard enough concrete plans, even on the international platforms such as the UN or elsewhere. So what might be the role for private sectors? Have they really taken their steps rather than rhetorics?
No, you are absolutely right. And I will say that it will be great for us to see in what capacity the private sector and the governments can work together. That's the next stage of technology revolution. Requires collaboration between the private sector and the government. That collaboration needs to happen because we're talking about citizens, and countries will be able to participate in this global lift of the economies because of the technology revolution only if they have the people to do so. And that is where you need the private sector and the government to work together.
Your company itself, have been cooperating with some of the very front runners of AI, especially technology-wise. And you become this, what you call the bridge between them and also the other players and partners you're working with. How would you carve out that role as things are evolving? And what is it like for you to do this transition as we speak?
You know, we work mostly for private corporations around the world, as you know, some of the large companies out there. And our role today has been to help this company make sense of the uncertainty that exists today. Uncertainty when it comes to geopolitical tension, uncertainty around the technology transformation, but also uncertainty around the viability of the businesses as things change around them, which means that do they have the right business model today? Do they need to reinvent themselves? That's the role that we play today for very large corporations, in addition to make sure that we are helping them when giving them the right to participate in this new economic, I would say, boom that I believe we're going to see coming. by ensuring that the basics of the corporations is happening with the people, with the regulators, on the compliance side, etc. So that's what we do today. We help our clients navigate uncertainty.
Are you betting on the right horse?
Now, we're not in the business of betting, we're in the business of helping.
Great answer. Having said that, what do you make of the business environment here in Latin America by visiting Peru this time? And how do you see this region is interacting with other parts of Asia Pacific, China, Northeast Asia, etc.?
So this is quite an interesting question. First of all, it's my first time here in Peru. And when I witness the flow of capital into Latin America, when I think about the new port that was built that way here in Peru to create a new sea lanes and maritime lanes with the rest of Asia, I feel very positive about it.
Yeah.
Very positive about the fact that it's Latin America can play a different role in that next big technology transformation because of the resources that you have here.
Thank you so much, Mohamed. It's such a pleasure to see you here.
It is a very good pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah.